This chapter was fairly simple. I'm actually rather surprised that Akutami has pushed into this direction so incredibly quickly. Originally, I thought with the introduction of Naoya and all of this information and context regarding Megami and him becoming the head of the Zen clan, that we'd either play on that a little bit further or at least have some more downtime period with Yuji and Chozo. And while we do get a very small portion of that, the amount of things that happen within this chapter is actually rather insane. And it seems like Akutami is just getting straight to the point. There's obviously going to be more here that's about to be played upon. I doubt this would ever lead to a conclusion so quickly between any of these individuals, but basically there's going to be no subtle build-up, which is perfectly fine. If anything, it makes me rather interested in how this arc is going to be structured and played out in its entirety, because we are still somewhat within the building blocks for this arc, giving everything meaning and weight and impact so we can be played upon within the future. And while there is stuff that is basically already there and that has been emphasized quite a bit, obviously there's still a massive amount of stuff lurking within the shadows. So I definitely am curious to see what Akutami does and how he wants to structure this arc in its entirety and the things he wants to give importance to, because just based off the handful of things that was either teased or introduced throughout this chapter, there may be some pretty massive things we get more attention towards. And one of those could potentially be, if translations are somewhat accurate and not entirely nuanced, Yuji's family, or at least his father. So we start off everything with Yuji and Chozo chasing down cursed spirits. We see some very beautiful artwork reflecting it. We see Yuji clapping within the city, trying to attract as many cursed spirits as possible. And this place is a complete wasteland. It's very desolate. There's no humans around whatsoever. And it's pretty crazy to think how quick this has all happened. Because of the Shibuya event, because of the mass amount of destruction and everything that's gone on within it, Tokyo has been completely evacuated. If not, it's been zoned off completely and has become basically a wasteland. And I think this is a perfect battleground for events that potentially encapsulate the entirety of Tokyo. We've seen how massive these attacks can get, so what better to have a very beautiful and free, somewhat battlefield with rarely any civilian life within it. We've already played rather heavily within Yuji's issues regarding Sukuna using his abilities and how that directly and negatively affects basically everyone around him. These abilities are extremely powerful, the amount of innocent lives that get caught up within it and the amount of deaths that it actually produces. So when you have a battlefield that is somewhat free of those issues, you can let loose a little bit further. Obviously, city structure is still one thing, and they're still going to look at it very weirdly if all of these buildings and society itself from Tokyo is just completely erased to dirt and rubble. But if it comes to it, it's definitely an opportunity, and it's one that I'm excited to see if it's played upon in a way like that. Because the more you think about it, the more it starts to make sense with how powerful these people are, how massive their abilities get, and just the individuals themselves. There is overwhelming people coming after Yuji. People with power that we know basically nothing about and have yet to be explored deeper in what they could truly produce. So Yuji working with Chozo to take out these curses is rather simple but beautiful at the same time. Seeing their relationship slowly build up a little bit further, and while it does seem there's like tension between them obviously because they're not completely connected or friends, if you want to put it that way, it's nice to see them working in conjunction with one another. There doesn't feel to be any hidden agendas, or at least it doesn't come across. It just feels natural that these two are working together and that they've known each other for an extremely long time, and I really enjoy that. I think it's a very nice thing to have before you introduce all of these very powerful individuals that are going to change the landscape of Tokyo. Obviously these two, Yuji and Chozo, can hold their own rather well, being very unpredictable and very powerful. But I'm definitely nervous that Akutami is building up this relationship just to tear it apart, because Chozo is one of those characters that can be killed off, I don't want to say rather easily, but he is disposable. He's not a character that is integral to the foundation of things going forward, and while he plays an emotional importance to Yuji and may potentially even fill in the blanks regarding his past or his family or whatever information he may know, killing him off would be a very sad thing, especially if we continue to play on this brotherly love that they have for one another, or as it grows over time, I should say. I find that dynamic between the two rather fascinating, and building upon it is going to bring a lot of emotional connection to both characters even further. Knowing Akutami, it's definitely a card hidden up his sleeve regarding killing off Chozo in a very emotional way after Yuji and him become rather close, after they've connected and bonded a little bit further. It's very early to put that into motion, but still one that's lingering in the back of my mind. So you see them work together to take out some curses, nothing too crazy there. You see Chozo kind of recognize that Yuji is getting stronger and he's still recovering and he's extremely impressive, which the dialogue is very praiseworthy. It's not the fanboy praiseworthy, but it's something that's more so impressive. Like he's shocked or that he's surprised that Yuji has changed so much since their fight in Shibuya, which is completely understandable when you consider the amount of fingers that Yuji has eaten not long after that fight. And obviously with Sukuna getting more powerful, Yuji has to retroactively keep up to date with him. Before these powerful people come into play, there is something here, however. Chozo mentioning something about Yuji's father and him having the forehead stitches. Obviously we know that forehead stitches is indicative to brain at this point, not Narutoshi, just brain. I'm not sure if this is that nuanced translation that I was talking about, if this has a deeper meaning or if this is literal what it actually means, but just based off Yuji's facial expression, it seems like something he hasn't heard for a very long time. And I'm very curious if this is legitimately a thing. If Yuji's father did have those forehead stitches, what does that actually entail? I think there's already a lot of theories going around that Yuji's family is something else entirely, like they are somehow connected to the sorcery world and the politics side of it. And one that I came to a conclusion a very long time ago, which was just based off a whim. Probably the only reason why I've never talked about it is because I try to avoid making baseless theories with no evidence or connections or threads that I can tie together whatsoever, but I'll throw it out here now, is that the possibility of Yuji's family being vessels for powerful things or curses or individuals could very well be a thing. I think undoubtedly his family is something. Probably not to the extent that you would think of the Kamo clan or the Zenin clan or anything along those lines. Nothing as prominent, but a very small and specific family maybe that exists within the sorcery world. Maybe they're away from it, maybe they tried to run away from it. And the more I think about his family being carriers or vessels for powerful individuals, it starts to make a little bit more sense with that direct translation that Yuji's father was also a vessel of sorts, whether it be for brain or another individual. There's not really much here to connect the dots and to make it sound a lot more legitimate, but it would explain Yuji's abnormal strength before he had Sukuna, and also how he's able to very retroactively and quickly adapt to Sukuna's massive increase and jump into power. If he has been born and bred and designed to be a vessel like this, that 1 in a million or 10 million or whatever the number Megami spouted at the beginning of the story would make a little bit more sense. Your first question is probably like, well, why didn't these people recognize Yuji? If he's from a family that are born and bred to be vessels within the sorcery world, surely other clans would know about them. And you're right, they probably should, unless Yuji's family tried to escape that life. And that is kind of the only thing that really has no weight whatsoever, but I can imagine a lot of people wouldn't want to be vessels, especially if they're vessels underneath a specific family. So a family would have full control over putting them into different directions and putting cursed spirits inside of them. You can imagine how detrimental and tragic that could even be, and even if it's just a very small portion of that idea is accurate, I'd be more than happy, because I would love to see a family that has been born and bred and kind of shackled to other families to be vessels, and that's it. They don't have their own life, they're very tailored to be a specific direction. And then you have Yuji, who is also a part of that family, but has been distanced away from it, has tried to escape, and it could be indicative to the reason why his parents are potentially dead. Maybe they were hunted down for escaping or something along those lines, who knows? But there's a lot of ideas there and a lot of ways that you can play upon it, and only with time does that truly kind of flesh itself out even more. That's just my baseline version of what I've been thinking about for what seemingly is a year now, and I've never really talked about it because there's not really anything to add to it. It's very just within the moment. So it's interesting that Chozo points that out, but it's interrupted very quickly by Naoya, and he's here obviously being a menace, as usual, and it's great to see him instantly after his introduction. It allows that impact, weight, and influence that he had on people and readers to traverse into this chapter and the following. So it's very effective, and now we get to see the abilities backed behind that very twisted and rather idealistic individual. Naoya could care less about Sukuna. He's just looking for Megami, so he can force him to transfer the title of the Zenin head back to Naoya. So already he's not taking these two very serious. He recognizes their strength, but he's not attacking with the intention to kill. If anything, he's just trying to subdue Yuji so Megami can come to him a lot easier. The only thing that we actually get to witness between the three is the amount of speed that Naoya truly has. The man is extremely impressive, and I'm very curious on what his techniques actually build up to be. They mentioned that his speed is something to do with his techniques. It's going to be interesting on how it's deconstructed and played upon in a way now that another individual comes into the picture. And he comes in with probably the most impact and the most pressure that you could even imagine, something very similar to Gojo. All three of them stop in their tracks and feel this massive amount of pressure fall over them. And I think their instinct immediately thinks of Gojo because that's the pressure that he gives off, but it's not. It's none other than Yuta. So this basically ends off the chapter. Everyone is already together. Four individuals that I don't think a lot of people expected to see together all at once, or at least maybe one at a time, but Akutami said, you know what, we're just going to put them all together in the next chapter. I wouldn't be surprised if Megami shows up at the end of next chapter at this point. So obviously very powerful people here. A lot of information probably has to come across, especially because Yuta is the wild card here. As much as Naoya is unpredictable, I don't think any of them can realistically, at least for now, hold a candle to Yuta. It kind of depends on how serious he is taking it and what stuff Akutami is retroactively bridging over from the prequel, what abilities are going to be played upon, and how much more powerful he has become with the trip that he went on. I'm surprised everything happened so quickly, but there is a lot of amazing things here. And I couldn't be more excited to see the interactions between all of them regarding the context of actually being there and how it is justified and shifted and moved around to see how they emotionally react. There is a lot of massive things in motion, and I couldn't be more eager to see how it all unravels. So with that being said, that is basically it. Let me know how you felt about the chapter. What do you think about Naoya, Yuta, the process of bringing everyone together so quickly, and the relationship between Yuji and Chozo? There's a lot of great things here, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.